Hello everyone. Today I'd like to talk to you about Christmas and the Savior Jesus Christ. And I want to talk about what it's really about, because it's been lost through the years. The message gets corrupted by people that don't know the message, so they make it out to be whatever they want it to be rather than what it is. So let's talk about that. First thing I want to mention is before Jesus Christ, before he was even born, long before Jesus was even born, there were other so-called saviors or gods that were born on December 25th of a virgin and have very, very similar stories to Jesus. Why is this? Coincidence? Coincidence is a word we use when we don't know the reason. And people throw the word coincidence around all the time until their lips pucker. Coincidence. But there's no such thing. Coincidence is just a word we use when we don't know the reason. There is a reason why over 32 other gods have stories of born of a virgin and on December 25th, and have very similar stories. Horus of Egypt, if you read that story, is just another Jesus. Now, I'm not saying that Jesus the man did not exist. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. We don't have really any proof that he did, because it's kind of odd that even the writers of his day didn't mention him. It wasn't until many years later that they started talking about this person Jesus with a name like Jesus hanging around the Middle East with the Abduls and Ahmeds. So we have to understand what the story is about, and then it'll make a little more sense. So let's start with astrology, because that's where all of these stories are based in. Now, this video, if I was to get into it in detail, would be 8 hours long. So I have to cut to the chase and get into each part as quickly as I can, give you the details, and then move on to the next one. If you have questions, feel free to ask them, and I will answer all the questions. And research this information for yourself. Don't believe me, because it's your mind and your consciousness that's important. And if you want to believe something, it has to resonate with you as the truth. And it has to actually be true. So let's talk about what we do know. What we do know is, on the astrology of Christmas, is like this. The sun makes a path. It's actually stationary. The earth is going around the sun. It's on its tilted axis. My head is the sun, and the tilted axis, if we're in the northern hemisphere, this would be winter. And when we go around to the other side, we would be tipped in. That would be summer. Front and back would be spring and fall, because the tilt would mean equal days, equal nights. So as the sun rises and sets a little bit lower each day from the fall equinox, where the days are equal night and day. From that point on, it continues to, well, from the summer on, the longest day of the summer, the summer solstice is the longest day of the year, and then from that point on the days get shorter all the way up, and the sun gets lower and lower in the sky and passes a little less each day until the 21st of December. And on the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of December, it stops. This is a time where we are directly coming up to the winter solstice, and we're coming to the shortest day of the year, which is the 21st. That's the shortest day of the year. Now, before the sun starts to move the other way and start rising higher in the sky each day, it appears to set and rise in the same spot for 3 days. And it was said to have died for 3 days. The sun dies for 3 days on 22nd, 23rd, 24th. And then on the evening of the 24th and the 25th, when it rises again on the 25th, it starts moving back and a new sun is born. And the cycle starts all over, and it was called the birth of the sun, the rebirth of the sun, because it gets born again on December 25th every year. And ancient people, that's what they were, the gods to them. The sun, the moon, and the other visible planets in the sky, the 7 visible moving stars. The sun, the moon, and the Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Venus. Those 7 visible planets. So we get the 7 days of the week. They're named after the planets. Sunday, Saturn Day, Thor's Day, Moon Day. And religions were also based on this. So we have to realize the astrology here on Christmas morning, New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, or early Christmas morning at 1 a.m., Virgo rises on the eastern horizon, the Virgin constellation. That gives birth to Jesus. Now, before that, though, as it rises, also the 3 kings, which are the 3 stars of the Orion's belt, also rise, and they point to the star Sirius, the dog star. And the alignment between these two, because as the sky moves, then the sun rises. And then we have the 3 stars of Orion's belt, Sirius pointing at the sun, with Virgo higher up in the sky at this point. It's this constellation and rebirth that religions are talking about when they refer to their saviors and gods and Jesus. Now, that doesn't mean Jesus did not exist. Let's get this straight. Maybe he did. We don't know. But what's important is Jesus' message, which is this message. But he was teaching the message that is being linked. Because what they do is, when the ancient cultures, the savior of their time, that's why all these other cultures have stories the same as Jesus, because the savior of their time, they wanted to remember this. They didn't want this message to be lost. So they linked it to the stars, because they know it will be there forever, until you're looking at them now. The very first page of the Bible tells you the stars are for signs for you. So let's read the signs. And there's a confusion because people think, well, if Jesus is the Son and has to do with that, then how can he be a real person? And I just explained that because they wanted you to remember this person and this story because it's very important. And the reason for that is there are so many people, ignorant people, that don't believe or know the story that want to stop you from knowing it. They don't want you to know the story. And people have been killed. Giordano Bruno, we know that because it was proven after the fact, the reason he was killed is because he was giving you the information I'm giving you, because it wasn't allowed at the time. There are, and you know, the Freemasons in the upper levels of Freemasonry, they get into this, but the lower levels of Freemasonry is really Freemasonry by name. But that's a video for another time. Now, the message, you must have heard that as above, so below, as a spiritual teaching. Well, as above, we have the story of Jesus and the stars that I just explained to you. Well, below, here, there is a correspondence between the two. The Hermetic principle, number one, the law of correspondence, means what happens within us also happens outside of us. And this correspondence between the stars and the rebirth of the sun happens here, in our mind. The rebirth of our mind is what we're talking about, and what the Bible was written for is for you to understand how to find God within you. God is in you. Let's not make any mistake about that. He also exists out, I say he, but it's it. God is one with everything there is, and you are a God inside, but you have to find it first. And then you can create anything you want in your life. And when I say things like that, people will say things like, well, if you can create anything you want, how come you're not creating $1 million for yourself? This is the comment of an ignorant person who thinks money is the answer to happiness. And we know that's not true because there are plenty of millionaires that end up drowning their sorrows in alcohol, booze, or commit suicide. And they have all the money they need. Why didn't they just go and buy some happiness? People try every day to go out and buy happiness until they run themselves ragged trying to attain this happiness. But it's not something money can buy. It's something you have to find yourself inside your mind. And that requires you to unlearn the things that were taught to you when you were younger, from maybe your parents or relatives or society, that are false. When you live a falsehood, you start living lies. And then you're not living in balance with nature. There are principles that, the 7 Hermetic principles, I'll do another video on them, but these are natural laws that we are bound to. Whether we like it or not, whether we understand them or not, we are bound to these laws of nature. And if we break them, because you can break them, because you have free will, but you will pay a price for breaking them every time. And sometimes the price might not be right away. There may be a time delay, so you don't realize that the punishment you're getting is for something you did long ago. And this is difficult with something, and that's why people can't link it together. And that's what most religions are all trying originally in their ancient teachings, were trying to teach the same message. And this message now is out there, it's available, and here I am telling it to you right now, but you can find it other places. Now, you have to find somebody who really understands it and knows what they're talking about, and that can be very difficult. In the past, there were very few, but the information now with the internet, the hidden information, the secrets of the occult are now coming out. And remember, there is a dark occult and there is a light occult. The light occult are the truly illuminated and enlightened ones who are moving society on a path towards peace and unity with the message of Jesus. And then the dark occult is just the opposite of that. They're just selfish, and they're just using this knowledge unaware of the effects it may have on them later. Now, religion and Jesus and Christmas is all trying to teach you about this thing called enlightenment and a rebirth. As Christmas is a rebirth, it's the birth of Jesus. Happens every year. We call it a birthday. But it's really about your rebirth. You live your life and you have all these experiences, and they create you into who you think you should be. The self, who you think you are. And at some point you have to kill that self. Because, not in actual kill yourself, but in your mind, you have to undo the thoughts that the falsehoods, you have to tear down all the falsehoods, pull back all the curtains and see what's behind them. The movie The Wizard of Oz is a beautiful movie that explains this exact thing, life and enlightenment, and the travel you have down the road and the decisions you make with your brain and your heart and your courage. Chasing wizards that say they're going to help you, but they're just charlatans. They're just an average man like you and me. But in the end, after you face your demons, you realize within yourself you always have the power. You've had it the whole time. You don't need anybody else. You don't need me. You don't need a wizard. You don't need a priest to find the God that's inside you. It's there. It's an energy. If you don't like the word God because it makes you think of an invisible man in the sky that grants wishes, just call it energy, light. The Bible tells us God is light, the light of the world. There is good and there is evil. Good is God with an extra O. The devil is evil with a D in front of it. No coincidence. That's what it is. And our conscience is knowing right from wrong. And we live in a society where people don't know right from wrong. They think right is stepping on other people, using them as stepping stones to better themselves, or they think they're bettering themselves, but they really don't know what they're doing, a lot of people. Now, have you heard of chakras? We're moving right along to chakras and what the chakras are. Chakras is the energy points within your body, from your root chakra on up to your crown chakra. These are energy points in your body, on your spine, that are related to emotions. Now, whether or not you can, I don't think you can open somebody up with a scalpel and find a chakra. These are used as an allegory to let you understand. You'll feel these emotions in those spots in your body, and the crown chakra refers to the pineal gland in the brain. And that's what that is a path to enlightenment. Learn about them. Read about what those are and the emotions linked to the chakras. You open your chakras, starting with the root chakra and all the way up to the 7th chakra, which is the pineal gland. You do them one at a time, and they are related to emotions in our body, which can be messed up because of society. Society not knowing what love is. Society thinks love is sex. They've got them two linked together. They even call it making love, but sex is not love. Love is something that comes from in you, and you have to have it or you can't give it to anybody else. You have to have it first. And many relationships have a lot of problems, and they fight constantly, and they just can't figure out what's going wrong. And I'll tell you what's wrong, because neither of the people, or maybe they don't, I don't know, depends on the relationship. But what I see is most relationships don't understand what love is. I see relationships, they think it's sex, and it's not. It has nothing to do with that. Sex is a product of love, but it's not love. Love comes from within and actually caring about everything, not just yourself, but other people, the world, the environment, real care. But we don't have love in the world today, a lot of it anyway. It's very little. It's powerful. It is the most powerful thing you'll ever imagine. That's all it really is love. That's what drives mankind. But yet there are people that only care about themselves and their immediate family. Screw everybody else. Now, this thing called enlightenment is what finding love is. And people say this is only as few as 1 to maybe 10% of the whole world population actually understands this stuff. Truly. And because of that, they're confused about what love is. And now the information is coming out there. There's a lot of changes going on in society because the truth is coming out. And the people who are living lies will be very uncomfortable because they want their illusions to continue. But they're not going to, because the truth always wins. And ignorance, people that don't know the truth, there's nothing wrong with ignorance. It's just a word, but it seems like it's used as a weapon. It just means you don't know. You either know or you don't know. Those who don't know are ignorant to the knowledge that's important to all of us. It teaches us what love is. And this is a real thing. Enlightenment, a spiritual awakening, as they call it, is a real thing. Now, what it is this. Most of society, men and women, you know men and women act a little bit different. Men act one way, women act differently. That's because of the two hemispheres of our brain. Men use the left side more. more skeptical, more, you know how men act. They're more logical. When they go somewhere, they go directly there, straight line, best, shortest route they can do to get there. The military, that type of mindset. And then you have the other type of mindset, the left brain, that is more creative and artistic, music. And these two sides of our brain have to work in balance. And what has happened throughout society, or it may not be just society saying this, it could be a natural reaction, because it seems like it's been going on for as long as we have records for, that people start out and experience, gathering all these experiences in their life, and they move to either a left brain dominant or a right brain dominant hemisphere of the brain, and they never blend. This blending of the two sides of the brain together is what enlightenment is. And it's a real thing, and it can be seen. They do brain scans on people who have had enlightenment and people who haven't. And they can prove, and they see, that the front part of the brain, the frontal lobe of the brain, is more active in people who have had a spiritual awakening, or Christ consciousness, is what some people called it. And that is because your pineal gland, the third eye, which is in the center of the brain, looks like a pine cone, is active. And when that activates, it activates your frontal lobe, and you're using more of your mind. It's blended together in balance. In balance where it should be for nature, naturally. And when human beings do this, they become more unified. They think alike. All spiritually awakened people will think very similar, because they know the difference between right and wrong, because they're in balance with nature. And that's what the Bible is trying to teach us. But it's been confused and manipulated over the years by people that don't know it, trying to teach it. And where's that going to go? It's going to go where it is today, where we have giant mega churches down there saying they're speaking the word of Jesus, but then taking money from people and building mansions for themselves to live in. That doesn't help them. That keeps them a servant. That is the dark side of this knowledge, the dark occult. The dark, hidden knowledge. The occult means hidden. This knowledge I'm giving you. The dark side of that is when they use this knowledge on people that don't know it, are ignorant to it, and they exploit them. The light side tries to teach you this knowledge so you have it for yourself. Now, the biggest part of living in a left brain imbalance is skepticism. Rigid skepticism that I know it all and there's no more to know. There's no secrets in this world I'll ever find out about, because there is none. I already know it all. That's the height of ignorance. That's ignorance speaking to you, telling you, do not learn. Stay where you are. And it's the ego talking, trying to tell you that you already know. But there is more. Nobody knows it all. I don't know it all. I have a lot more to learn. But as I learn it, I will share it with you. The truth, the real truth behind all these stories that have been mixed up and jumbled and retaught by people that don't know the truth about it. The chemical changes that happen in the brain happen when I talked about the chakras and how you light these chakras up. Some believe there is an oil in the spine that goes up and it hits the pineal gland, which then it releases DMT and different chemicals in the brain to give you a euphoric feeling. Both hemispheres of the brain join together, but there is a time when you have this spiritual enlightenment that it's not an easy thing to do. Looking at yourself in the mirror and saying you're wrong over and over, because that's what it really requires you to do, because you're breaking down old thought patterns that were wrong and false, and you're finding the truth, and you have to change your mind over and over until you question yourself enough to break down the ego, and a chemical reaction takes place, and your mind starts to join something happening, because I experienced it myself. And there's a point when this happens. There is what they call a dark night of souls. Dark night of souls. You can Google that and look it up. And it's a time after a spiritual awakening where you are, and some people it can extend for more than 3 nights, and it can happen at different times, a little bit here and a little bit there. But there are moments where this blend is starting to take place, and there's a confusion. And for me, there was a lot of paranoia and confusion when I just found out some critical information that I now know is true. It rocks your world. It really does. And there can be paranoia, like, who else knows this? Am I the only one? And you're putting it all together when you find the truth out. Because some people can't handle the truth. Literally cannot handle the truth because it's so amazing. So you have to be careful. Some people lose their minds because they don't have good guidance. And they don't know what's going on, because they know there are some people out there living lies. We see in society today, there are people that say they love you, and but they do things that hate you. People say they feel one way with their lips, but then act a completely different way. Their emotions are not in line with what they're saying and what they're feeling, because we've lived lies for so long. And we have to get back in balance. And that's what's going on. And that is what the Bible, Jesus, Christmas is all about. It's about a rebirth, telling you about a rebirth that you can have, that will. Now, here's the thing. Some people say, well, being enlightened, if you get an enlightenment or a spiritual awakening, does it make you a better person? You're still a person. It's natural. It's a natural function of the human mind. It's like a caterpillar goes into a cocoon, comes out a butterfly. Is the caterpillar better than the butterfly? No. Neither one is better than the other. It's just a natural process that we all go through. But religion, the term religion comes from the word regulare, which means to bind, hold back. Regulare. That's what the word religion comes from, and that's what it means. To hold you back, to tie you down, to close your beliefs so that you don't look outside. And hold you back from what? Hold you back from growing, so that you have this development that is supposed to happen with all people. But you can be held back by religion. And there are people out there that know this information that will use it to keep people in the dark so they don't know, so they can use them for their own interests. That's the dark occult, and it could be your local church, or it could be a Satanist cult down the street. Could be either one of them. But there are, there are better odds are that in a Christian or synagogues they are teaching the light and good teachings, because the Satanist cults are not teaching good teachings. They're teaching just the opposite of what Jesus taught. And it does have its purposes too, because life is a big circle. It all goes around. And that's part of these teachings. And you can find the truth out from both sides. I know people that have been in occults, Satanist dark cults, and found the truth and got out and realized, but it was the path they took, and now they work to do everything they can to stop these dark occults. And what do? You do what I'm doing. You spread information and teach the truth about this ancient knowledge of who you are. It's psychology. The Bible's about psychology, about the mind and who you are in the world you live in. And a spiritual enlightenment is the secret. It opens up a whole new world to you. What's going on. And the basic thing that Jesus was teaching, and I want to wrap it up here because it's getting kind of long, is the difference between fear and love. Those are the opposites. Love, and the opposite of love is not hate, it's fear. Because hate comes from fear. Fear is the root. Love and fear. You can live your life in love, then that's the message that Jesus, and I will also be teaching that message too, of love. And how to live a life expressing that. Versus living a life in fear and creating your ideas and your actions out of fear. Things created out of fear end up in chaos. Things created out of love end up in order. Because love is a natural order of our universe and our planet, and and the natural laws all are in balance with it. So that's what Christmas is about. It's about reminding us that there is a rebirth. There's a message in the stars and in Jesus and the whole thing that is telling us that we should look inside ourselves, because that's where this thing called God is. And it can make a big impact on your life. Depression, anxiety, sickness, all kinds of things that can change you, because living without this knowledge creates a lot of, when you're living lies, it creates stress. Stress creates illness. So your health depends on it. And, it's hard to end this video without talking about materialism and Christmas. Jesus talked about materialism and chasing money, thinking that that was going to make you happy, because it isn't. It's a trick. And also the idea of expectations. Expectations, young kids and Christmas today, the whole concept, they're expecting gifts for Christmas, and it shouldn't be about expecting and receiving anything. It's about giving. Jesus talked about giving to others, giving away your stuff to others, for the reason of it doesn't do you any good. It does you better to help each other than to be selfish. And that's basically it that I'm going to talk about today. I thank you for listening to all this. I tried to put a lot in the shortest video that I can do on the ancient knowledge of Christmas, Jesus, the occult, and please hit the subscribe button so you get more videos as I post them on this information that I want to share with you. Thank you, and you have a great day.